This audio program by Radio AI is generated using artificial intelligence technologies. The voices you hear in this program are synthetic, and the thoughts they express are shaped through artificial intelligence-driven reasoning and iterative refinement.
Welcome to Radio AI, where we embark on a deep dive into some of the most fascinating topics shaping our lives. Today, we're unraveling a question many of us, constantly grapple with. Is it truly better to buy or rent in the city? What feels like maybe a straightforward financial choice actually hides layers of complexity, things like market dynamics, even our own psychology.
Exactly. It's far from a simple yes or no answer, isn't it?
All right.
We're really looking at a decision woven into personal finances, yes, but also shifting market forces and even the broader fabric of our urban communities. We'll try to peel back some of that common wisdom today to understand the real variables at play.
Okay, let's start where most people do, the raw numbers. Many instinctively assume homeownership is always the financial champion because, equity and appreciation.
Yeah.
But what does a truly rigorous analysis reveal beyond that gut feeling?
Right. And what's truly fascinating here is how much the financial landscape can, flip the script. For instance, low interest rates can make mortgage payments surprisingly comparable to rent, sometimes even less.
Oh, really? Less?
Yeah, potentially. But, and this is a big but, if property prices are already sky high relative to rents, or if inflation is uncertain, that long-term financial edge of buying, it can erode surprisingly fast.
Yeah.
So while those rent versus buy calculators are useful tools, you have to remember they're incredibly sensitive to what you assume about, say, future rent growth or how long you actually plan to stay. They can't give you the definitive answer.
Just a conditional one.
Oh,
Okay.
Exactly.
That financial data is compelling, but I'm curious, and I bet you are too, listener, how much of this choice is driven by emotion or deeply ingrained beliefs rather than just cold spreadsheets? This is where it gets really interesting for me. The psychological side, the lifestyle dimensions.
Yeah, this raises such an important question. Why do we instinctively lean towards ownership? It feels like the default, doesn't it?
It really does.
And on average, sure, research suggests homeowners might accumulate more wealth. But that's highly contingent on the local market appreciating and how long you actually own the property. It's definitely not purely rational. Behavioral economics shows us how things like the endowment effect can play a role.
Where we overvalue something just because it's ours.
Precisely. Or prospect theory, our tendency to feel the pain of a loss much more intensely than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. That can skew our perception of ownership security. And this leads to things like cognitive biases and information asymmetries. Basically, we often don't have all the facts, or maybe we interpret them in a biased way.
Which means we might not make the best decision for ourselves.
Exactly. Less than optimal decisions are pretty common here.
So it's not just about crunching numbers. It's about how we even perceive those numbers. Can you give us a quick, real-world example of how one of these biases might trick someone?
Oh, absolutely. Think about someone who might say, hold on to a depreciating property longer than they objectively should. Why? Because of the endowment effect. They've invested so much emotionally and financially that selling at a loss just feels worse than staying put, even if staying is actually costing them more money month after month.
Wow, okay. That makes sense.
And then there's the lifestyle aspect. There's definitely a correlation between home ownership and, residential stability, staying put,
Right.
versus renting, which tends to correlate more with labor mobility. Moving for jobs.
And that flexibility is huge now.
It really is. Renting offers that flexibility, which is increasingly vital in urban settings, especially with career shifts, social changes. I've seen countless examples where that flexibility allowed someone to just grab a great career opportunity in another city almost overnight.
Something selling a home would have made much, much harder.
Almost impossible sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, that flexibility makes a lot of sense, especially in today's dynamic job market. But let's zoom out now. Beyond the individual. What does all this mean for our cities themselves? How do bigger things like demographic shifts or policies influence these choices on a mass scale?
Right. Connecting this to the bigger picture is crucial. Demographic shifts like an aging urban population or the rise of single-person households, they significantly influence who wants to buy versus who wants to rent. You might see older individuals prioritizing stability, maybe downsizing but still owning, while younger, more mobile populations clearly value flexibility.
And policy. Governments must step in here.
Oh, definitely. Policy interventions, things like rent controls, tax incentives for ownership, zoning regulations, they can dramatically shift individual incentives, but sometimes with unintended consequences. Did you know that in some cities, rent control, while intended to help renters, has paradoxically led to fewer rental units being available?
How does that happen?
Well, landlords might convert properties to condos or just neglect maintenance because the capped rent doesn't cover upkeep costs adequately. It gets complex. So high rates of ownership might foster urban stability, which sounds good, but it can also decrease labor mobility, which might slow economic dynamism. Conversely, widespread renting can encourage that dynamism, but also expose more people to market volatility and rent hikes.
So these policies don't operate in a vacuum.
Not at all. They create these complex, sometimes unexpected outcomes. It's a huge area of study.
That's a really fascinating paradox with rent control. Okay, so given all this complexity, what about collective actions? Or are there new models emerging to navigate this?
Yes, definitely. Collective responses like tenant associations, for example, they can influence market practices, push for better security for renters, or cooperative housing arrangements. And there are also intriguing hybrid models starting to pop up, things like rent-to-own schemes or co-housing initiatives.
Trying to bridge that gap between flexibility and stability.
Exactly. They aim to offer a bit of both worlds. Their effectiveness is still being evaluated, really, but they absolutely represent an evolving landscape. People are actively trying to disrupt those traditional models.
And thinking even bigger picture, looking further out.
Yeah.
How do massive events like macroeconomic shocks or technological advancements play into all this?
Oh, they absolutely play a role. Sudden changes in interest rates, for instance, they can hit owners or renters very differently, immediately impacting affordability across the board.
Right.
And technology. Think about digital housing platforms changing how we search, or the huge rise of remote work fundamentally reshaping where and how people want to live. Even environmental considerations are entering the calculus now, the ecological footprint of different housing forms. That's becoming part of the decision for many.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, the listener? It seems clear. The choice to buy or rent in the city isn't about finding some universal prescription, is it? It's really about integrating that rigorous financial analysis with a keen understanding of these behavioral insights we talked about, plus recognizing the policy implications and appreciating the broader societal and now environmental contexts. It sounds like it's truly about finding the fit that best aligns with your specific life, your priorities right now, not just following some perceived wisdom.
I think that's perfectly put. In this very complexity lies both the challenge and, I think, the profound richness of the urban housing decision.
Thank you for joining us on Radio AI for this deep dive. We really hope this exploration gives you some new perspectives on a decision that impacts so many of us. Feel free to share your own thoughts or reflections in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. Hope to have you with us again on Radio AI. Until next time.